Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. I'm glad to see you. I can't see you. You can see me. That's how cameras work. My name is Jimmy McKay. This is a podcast that saves physical therapists from missing out on amazing insight, remarkable ideas, and motivational stories here in the world of physical therapy. I'm your host, physical therapist Jimmy McKay. Great show for you today. We've actually got students from Medical University of South Carolina, one of their private practice electives. They wanted to come on the show and kind of, I don't know, peek inside this weird world of podcasting and how different communication strategies can be used in their practice beyond graduation. So we're actually going to have one of the students who is no stranger to the show come on and kind of be like a guest interviewer. Let's bring him on and bring him in. Let's bring on Kaipo. Kaipo, welcome to the show.
How's it
There
going?
he is.
Oh man, thank
Kaipo's
you.
here. Want to thank
Thank
my friends at Recovery Science for giving you the first round. Owens Recovery Science, single source for PTs looking for certification in personalized blood flow restriction rehabilitation training and the equipment you need to apply it properly in your clinical practice. So there they are on the bottom of the screen, OwensRecoveryScience.com, and their new podcast, Owens Recovery Science Podcast, on iTunes or wherever quality podcasts are heard. Kaipo, welcome to the show, man. It's good to see you again. Last time we caught up, I was down at MUSC. Was that a year ago?
It was 2 years ago.
2 years. I was going to say, I was like, that year ago feels like 2 years. It's because it was in fact 2 years. See how that works?
It's funny.
Good to see you. Last time I was down at MUSC, was talking at the white coat ceremony down there, and you gave me a tour with some of your roommates of some cool parts of Charleston. Showed me where to get the best ice cream, which I appreciate personally. Like me some ice cream.
It's good stuff. That was Jenny's on King Street, and actually, if you're in Charleston again, there's another ice cream shop. If we happen to be in Charleston again, it's called it's actually off Bouffane Street. What's it called? I think Life Raft treats. But yeah, it's really good stuff.
I like it. All right. So you're in a private practice elective at Medical University of South Carolina, and Holly Wise is your professor. And she gave me an email a couple weeks ago and said, hey, like PT students came together. First of all, kudos to MUSC for having a private practice elective, and for the 7 students in it. That's pretty cool that you decided, hey, this is something I want to expand my education and my knowledge. And we figured, hey, why not broadcast this thing live and let everybody kind of interact? So if you're hearing something, if you want to know, we're going to talk about podcasting, but really like kind of my story, I guess, which I've told before, how I got to PT and how I became a professional physical therapist podcaster, which is not a job description. I didn't sign up for that. There is no elective. It's just something I made up. If you want to know anything, just drop a comment below or a question, and we will make sure we can get to some of those before the end. Or if you just have a comment, or we always like to see where you guys are actually listening or watching from. So let us know there. So Kaipo, you're going to kind of be the de facto me in this one, since I'm the guest. I'm very uncomfortable being the guest. It's very weird. I feel like I lose control. But
I got big shoes to fill.
Yeah, I'm not even wearing shoes. It's flip. I'm in summer mode, man. I'm in summer. Where do you want to start? I want to make sure I provide value for the students, from MUSC and the audience. So, like, where do you want me to begin? What's a good starting point?
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this for our class. I mean, us 7 students, we're all each really highly interested in starting our own businesses or going our own route in PT, whether that be clinical or non-clinical, like a podcast. So we really just want to hear your story. And the best way we can, I guess, kick that off is I got the first wildcard question that's going to be asked by Aaron Brown.
All right,
can we bring Aaron Brown in?
All right, Aaron Brown's going to come in. He's going to come in. He's very excited. I like it. There he is. Let's make sure he's unmuted. Boom, unmuted. No, there we go. All right, Aaron, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Aaron, wild card question. I was not given these questions beforehand. So fire away.
Okay. You ready?
Yes.
So if Hollywood was going to make a movie about your life, who would play you?
Wow. I've never been asked that. That's a very good question. I'm going to give you some kudos on that. I'm flattered. I don't know that there would be a movie about my life, but I will stay within the realms of your suspended disbelief that someone would actually make a movie about my life. I mean, I just mentioned this the other day, a guy that actually grew up not far from where I grew up in New York. This guy grew up in like near Woodstock, New York, just about an hour and a half north of New York City. Jimmy Fallon. I mean, I would be flattered. I mean, obviously, if anybody's making a movie about me, I'm going to be flattered. But yeah, Jimmy Fallon is someone that he's younger than me, but I always kind of looked up to him in terms of That guy just went after it and did it his way. You know, Lonely Island, just kind of making goofy music videos and skits with his friends, right? And then it landed him on Saturday Night Live, and now he's hosting the Tonight Show. So yeah, I would say Jimmy Fallon, great personality, kind of goofy looking like me. So I'll take it, right?
He's also got a ride at Orlando Universal.
He has a ride there?
Yeah.
What is it?
So it's I might be wrong, but it used to be the Jimmy Neutron ride back 10 some odd years ago. I don't even know when they converted it, but essentially you're on a big track with about probably 50 chairs, and it's like a virtual. I got sick.
Okay, good. So, we'll check. Yeah, we got some vestibular therapists watching right now. We're gonna get you looked at. Don't worry about that, Aaron. I would say Jimmy Fallon to answer your question. That's my final answer. Be flattered. And if anybody ever wants to, if you want to reach my agent, I don't have one, but if you want to be my agent, please contact me. But that's a great question. I might add that to the show as a wild card. That's a really good leadoff, man. Great question, Aaron.
Thanks. I'm sure he'd appreciate you.
Oh yes, I'm sure he's equally flattered that I suggested that Jimmy Fallon put me in a movie. All right, Aaron, I appreciate that question, man. Thanks for the icebreaker. All right, cool.
Yeah, and that sort of leads right into where we want to talk about, right? So a movie about your life obviously should be in production, but not quite yet. Right. But we just want to hear your basic story as a class. I mean, you were in radio at one point, you got PT school, now you're hosting a podcast. Can you fill in the gaps for us a little bit?
It starts much younger, Kaipo. Starts when I was a wee lad, probably about 11 years old. And this is serious. I did the morning announcements in 6th grade because someone was sick. They were like, we need someone to do the morning announcements in 6th grade. Like, hey, like today it's pizza for lunch and like basketball tryouts are like 3:30. And I literally was sitting there waiting in this room, and when the clock struck like 7:10 or whatever, the bells automatically dung, and like the microphone was just like click, and now the entire school could hear me. And I was like, oh my God, this is for real. I have made it. Everyone's gonna hear what I have to say. And I did my 3-minute spiel or whatever on the announcements, and all the hair on my arm stood up. When I was 11, I had 3 hairs or whatever, but all of them stood up. And I went home and I told my mom, I was like, this is what I want to do. I did the announcements. Oh my gosh, it was great. There was a microphone. There was stuff I had to read. And then I went back to my homeroom and people heard me. And she just saw the look on my face and she was like, wow, that's great. I don't know if morning announcements is a career, but we'll work on the things that you liked, right? So I did the morning announcements from 6th to 12th grade. I just kept showing up the first day of school to the office, and I was like, I'm here. Don't worry about looking for someone else. I got it. And I was like, I'm solving your problem. No more looking for someone. Because I loved it. I literally loved the feeling. Went to school for journalism and mass communication. I had a degree from St. Bonaventure University, still hanging out of the pennant over there in the corner of the room in the video. And picked that school based on a couple different things. And one of them was they had a really, really good college radio station. By the time when I started there, they were the number 8 college radio station in the United States. And by the time I left, we were number 2.
Ooh. Very
close to number 1.
What a climb.
I know, but I a little bit of spite in my voice because I thought we were number 1. But and again, I went to a school an hour and a half south of Buffalo, middle of nowhere, and nothing for miles and miles around school. But that meant that college radio station meant a lot to the local community. And I showed up, I did my first show at like midnight to 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, didn't care. I knew that there was 3 people listening and they were all my roommates and that's it. And I was still getting that feeling. And I was like, I love this, right? So that's college, graduate, did a bunch of internships. One of them was with a station called K-Rock in New York, WXRK, New York City big rock station. At the time, this is 2000, the morning show host for that radio station was a guy by the name of Howard Stern. So I got huge deal. Be on the biggest stage, and by on the biggest stage, I mean carrying coffee for the biggest stage in the world. But I was right there. I was watching the show happen. They were filming for E. They used to put Howard's show on E, so everything was happening, and I loved watching things at the highest level, right? The Howard Stern show. Like, I don't know if you could get a bigger radio show in the world. And I worked at small little radio stations with a staff of like 6 full-time people, and I loved both of them. I literally, on my first job interview, they were like, well, why do you want to do this? And I was like, I just love this industry. I love everything about communicating. So that's how I went from to get into radio. My one of my friends I talked to earlier, I was like, what parts of my story are interesting? Because they're my story, like they're boring to me, right? And she said, tell them how you got your first job. So do you want to hear how I got my first job in radio?
Yeah,
right?
Shoot, please.
You got to stand out in radio because you got a bunch of extroverts and we don't shut up, we're loud. And I literally pictured a program director's office. It's like a clinic director, like the person who runs everything on the radio station. So I was like, I pictured their desk, and I was like, their desk, just a bunch of papers and stuff, and they got a report, and they got a bunch of stuff, some CDs. And I thought, how do you get someone to want to open the package with your resume and your demo CD? How do you make it? Like, what do you do? So, Kaipa, what's something that when you get maybe once a year, maybe twice a year, that when you get, it's wrapped so beautifully, it's for you. It might have a bow on top. It might be on the day you were born. It might be on Christmas. I don't know. When you get that box, right, on those 2 days a year, when you get a present,
you open it.
It tells you it's designed. You need to shred this paper. So I wrapped my resume and demo CD in a box, and I wrapped it like a birthday present, put a bow on top, and I sent it to the program director. I knew I was at least getting opened, and that's all I needed, right? Mm-hmm. So then the question goes, what's inside the box? Well, I mentioned my resume and my demo CD, but have you guys watched Breaking Bad?
Yes, definitely.
So you know what a burner phone is, right?
Oh, 100%.
So I bought a burner phone, put like $20 worth of money on it, and I programmed one number into the speed dial. Guess whose number I put in the speed dial?
Jimmy McKay.
Right. And I just said, call me. So I got my first job interview that way because I literally was like, I got your attention. That's what a radio DJ is supposed to do. I need to be able to figure out how to get your attention. So by doing that, I proved I could get their attention. So I got a phone call. And that's how I got my first job in radio in Poughkeepsie, New York. And, the rest of my radio career was kind of history. I worked for 15 years, eventually got to run my own radio station. I got to go to work in cargo shorts and Guns N' Roses t-shirts, slide in around the crack of noon, play rock music super loud, and interview rock stars. Some highlights, like Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters was a big one. One of the nicest guys you're ever going to meet. Like, whatever you hear about him, that's the truth. Dave Matthews was, equally as accommodating, super nice. But also guys, in some other bands like Shinedown, like some people who, were on the cusp of making it, or maybe they were on their way up, and they're such hustlers. But that was really fun. Yeah, that was my job. I literally just went, I wore headsets and talked to microphones and, gave away beer and gave away concert tickets and CDs. And that was my life. Ran a radio station in Scranton, PA that was called 97.9X. And I got to be the program director of that one, which meant I got to open the CDs and the resumes, and I got to tell people kind of coordinate what people were doing. It was fun.
Has anyone ever sent you a gift like that?
No.
Had anyone? Oh, so you're the only one.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. I've told that story a couple of times. No one's ever done that. But I would challenge anybody, if you want to make my story of wrapping my resume as a gift relevant, because a lot of them are just digital now, right? How do you do that? Like, they tell you to put your resume on like proper resume paper. Maybe you don't, because if everybody's zigging and you zag, I don't know. Maybe that sets you apart. Some people would say that, well, that's not professional. They're going to look at you differently. If you are different, be different. I've done my resume in different formats. So that was it, man. I was in radio. That was my dream job, and I got it. And I was going to ride off into the sunset and just be a radio DJ for the rest of my life, until one day I woke up and I was just like, this isn't giving me that the tingles, right? The arm hair standing up anymore. And I started to panic, to be dead honest with you. I was in this job that I'd worked my butt off and thought I wanted my whole life, and I got it. And I knew there were a lot of people who'd also want that job. So I was like, oh, I can't give it up because it's valuable. But it was only valuable if I wanted it. So I started to look around my world, my little sphere. And I happened to be training for my first Ironman triathlon, and I was meeting up with the cycling group, and we'd meet up at this lake in Pennsylvania. It was beautiful on Wednesdays, and we'd ride, and it was awesome. And at the end of the ride, there was always this one guy, kind of like the old dude, in the crew. I'm not gonna call him old dude, but you know what I mean. He was just the guy who kind of knew everything. He was the Yoda of the group. Yeah. People would always, go to him and be like, hey, my hips are kind of, or my knee, what do I do? And he'd be just like, let me take a look, and all right, do this. And they just watching how they walked away from him, Like they walked over and they're like, I don't feel well, right? I didn't do it. And then they walked away. He listened to them and just told them a few things, asked them a few questions. And they were like, yeah, I'm going to try that. That's going to be great. Thank you. And I was like, dude, what do you like? How do you know all this stuff? Like they're telling you like one or two things. Like, how do you know this? And he's like, I'm a physical therapist. It's just kind of what I do. And I was like, man, how do I become one of you? Like, this is on a ride, right? We're biking. We're doing like 15, 20 miles an hour, just biking. And I'm like, I want to be one of you. And he fight clubbed me. He was like, nah, man, you're a radio DJ. I mean, it's cool. It's a cool job. I don't think you got the hustle like to do this. Ooh. You got to go through a lot of stuff. This is
ouch.
You're like, and I was like, all right, no, I respect that. And then like a week later, I came back and I was like, honestly, dude, like, I think I do. I think I'll do the things that you say. And he's like, I don't think so, man. Honestly, I don't think you're going to do it. And he did that twice. And that's why I say, like, if you ever watch the movie Fight Club, that's how that would get members. They would tell you no. If you were tall, they'd tell you you're too tall. If you're short, you're too short. If you're blonde, you're too blonde. Anything. No, you're not enough. You're too lazy. And when it was the third time, he's like, fine. I know the professor who teaches anatomy and physiology at the local community college. Go there. I'll tell her who you are. I'll get you in, even if the class is full. I did. Week 1 of the class, we're on a bike, we're riding. He goes, how's class? I was like, man, I learned how a muscle fires, and that stuff happens every time. And then
mind blown a little bit.
All the tinglies again.
Okay.
He's like, you're in the right spot, right? So I'm on the air still. I'm still working. I gotta have a job, right? So I'm on the air still, and I've got a physics book in the studio because I got to cram. Brent Smith from a band called Shinedown comes in for an interview, and not a lot of people at the radio station knew I was on my way out, right? So you don't want to tip your hand. You don't want to get fired, right, on the way out. Yeah. And Brent Smith, live on the air, not throwing me under the bus, was just like, what's with the physics book? And I was like, the table is uneven. That's the only book that fits. I just had to scramble. I was like, no, don't worry. That's to make me look smart. I don't actually read physics books. So yeah, got into PT school after applying Marymount University. And what I was doing, I was hanging up the headphones, right? I was done. I was done being a radio DJ. I was going to go and be a student now. And, loved my PT experience first year, went to a state conference in it was in North Carolina, the next conference in North Carolina. And I was sitting there listening to a presentation. You've all been there, right? Like 1,000 people in the room and stuff like that. Someone's on stage and they're pontificating and they're like giving knowledge and they're smart. And you're like, yeah, this guy was talking about how to train like military battalions. And it was just very testosterone-y. And I was like, yeah, what's this guy talking? Yeah, I like this. But I didn't understand everything because I was like a second-year student, right? I was like, okay, I kind of understand that. I have no idea what that means. I'm going to write that down, look that up later. So I didn't raise my hand and stop this guy in the middle of the presentation. But there was the networking hour, which is code for happy hour. And of course, I went to that afterwards. And there was the guy, right? It's kind of a little bit of fate. There was the guy across the room who'd been on stage. And I was like, you know what, man, I paid like $200. I'm going to learn something, damn it. And I marched on up 3 beers deep, And I was like, hey, man, I'm Jimmy. I was at your presentation and I didn't understand it. In hindsight, is a crappy way to introduce yourself to someone. But he saw it. And 20 minutes later, we're neck deep in a conversation that, like when you're having a beer with someone and you're really getting it and you're understanding stuff and you're just like, yeah, tell me more about that. And people were kind of like doing this. They were like eavesdropping. They were like, one of these guys, this sounds interesting over here. And that's when I realized again, I got the tingles and I was like, man, this is cool because I got the guy who I wanted to know more of. I could have went to his website or emailed him, but that's not the way I communicate. I interview people. It's just what I did. And we had like a 4-hour ride back from North Carolina to where we were living. I had a couple of classmates in the car after the conference. And I was like, hey guys, got a cool idea. I'm going to run it by you. I'm thinking about starting a podcast where I just interview people in physical therapy over a beer. And these were my friends very close to me. And they said, that is a terrible idea. And you should not do that. And I was like, oh, crap. All right. But I looked at it like they weren't fight clubbing me on purpose, right? They were probably answering me based out of their own insecurities. Like, I don't know, man, if you step out, I don't know where that's going to lead to. And that's not what other people are doing. So that's kind of dangerous. And I wasn't going to do it until it was just like down here, my gastrointestinal region. It was just in my stomach. And I was like, this still feels like a good idea. And I ran it by one of my professors, and she was like, not only is this a good idea, like I will line you up with whoever you want to talk to, and I'll buy the first round of beers. Like, this is great. We should do this. So dropped a 6-pack of episodes. Well, 6-pack.
I see what you're there.
6-pack of episodes. And I was just going to kind of put them out. It was a goof, right? It was just kind of like, all right, this is cool. Let's see where this goes. And we got 10,000 downloads the first month. And I would love to say it was strategic and I knew exactly what I was doing, but I did not. I had no idea. I was winging it. But when I was doing it and when I was watching the reaction of people online, they were like, this is cool. Like, do more. What are you going to do next? And I was like, I don't know. I feel like I needed to ask permission. Like, what do you want me to do next? So it started to catch kind of legs. And that was my second year of PT school. Actually, this September will be 5 years of doing this show, which is weird.
That's huge, though.
Yeah, it's cool. But it's also like, you look back and you're like, holy crap, I've been doing this for 5 years. So now we start to get into like the third part of my story is like, so that's what, now what, but now it's like, so what? So graduated, practiced for 2 years, was a mixture of like orthopedics and pediatrics. So I did like a year at one and like, a year and a little bit of another, the whole time still doing interviews at night, still getting the tingles from that, still getting the tingle. I mean, I love treating kids, still do. But I was looking for like, how could I merge these two worlds that I'm living in a little bit bigger, a little bit differently? So I looked around at different PT practices who were larger and who already did, kind of communications well. And I found I'd interviewed the CEO, the founder, the physical therapist who created Fox Rehabilitation, Dr. Tim Fox. And I was like, they're kind of cool. They're different. Their clinicians work from home, but they do outpatient physical therapy, like to older adults. They had this great brand. And I was like, let's do it. So I didn't wrap it like a box, right? And I didn't put a burner phone in there because that would be, I evolved.
Different population that you're
different population, right? And I kind of knew my audience. I'm talking to the CEO of a, multi-million-dollar PT practice spread across 20 states. I wrote a job description and emailed it to him. I figured out what the email address to the CEO was, not his administrative assistant, not the person who's in charge of HR, not the clinical director. I went right to the top, the guy who made decisions. I was like, hey, Tim, here's 8 things that you need done with your practice, and I can do all of them. And then I put my phone number. I got a call 2 days later. I had an interview 2 weeks later. I had a job 2 weeks and 1 hour later. So that was how I got my current job. So the current job right now is like, what is it, right? Director of Communications. But that doesn't say anything. That's a job title. I host 3 podcasts for Fox Rehab, Foxcast PT, Foxcast OT, Foxcast SLP for PTOT and SLP. I host their videos internally within the practice, and I get to jump on camera and kind of be that host for some of their social media content. I get to facilitate blogs, right? So I'm in between clinicians, our clinicians at Fox, who we want writing for us, but maybe writing isn't it's not their strong suit. So I come in and I go, tell me what you're passionate. I do an evaluation, a communications evaluation. Tell me what you're passionate about. What do you think the world needs to know more of? What drives you? What do you want to know more of? And you're willing to put some research into it. And they're like, well, that's this, and this. Great. I'm going to set you up with a professional editor, and we're going to do this article together. And then I walk people through the process of creating those articles. So there's articles, videos, podcasts. That's print, TV, radio. This is the stuff I learned. We just changed everything. So we just changed the medium a little bit, but it's words, sound, video, and sound. Right? We're just changing that. So that's what I do now. And I host this show that we're on right now, PT Pintcast. And in the middle of it, while I was studying for my boards and finishing PT school, I figured, why not launch another podcast? I wound up launching NPTE StudyCast, which is a bunch of 5-minute episodes that teach you all the topics that you need to know to pass your NPTE. But I have no attention span. So I was like, they need to be like 5-7 minutes tops, like just Parkinson's disease. Go. What do I need? Go. Got it. Good. I'll listen to it later. That's what I do. And it's awesome. And I like it. And
what a story. You get those tingles, right? I mean, like that's the rush that we as students hope to get with whatever we do. It's, I think, the feeling embodied of fulfillment. Like it's just like that you're doing exactly what you feel like you were put on this earth to do. And whether that was, talking to a rock star or helping someone with shoulder issues or on that bike. You still got those tingles, and you're challenging yourself, bettering yourself, and impacting the world. I love it. I love every bit of it.
You hit it. That's exactly it. You hit it right in the head. That's exactly it.
It's fantastic. So, okay, so we have the podcast, right? And I had no idea that you had just started the NPT one, which is really great because I take boards in a year, and I'm going to be listening to every single episode from the NPT StudyCast. So I'm sure that everyone listening that is going to be taking that should benefit from it. So they should definitely listen to it as well. So we're going to shift a little bit, and we're going to talk more about building the podcast and how you're able to create this whole thing. You alluded to the process a little bit, but to lead off this section, we have another wildcard question.
All right, who's doing this one?
This one's going to be Amber Karen, and she's got a really, really good one to share with you.
Amber, look at that. She comes right in the room. Amber, how are we doing?
Hey, good, and you?
Doing fantastically.
All right. So I initially thought this was just one podcast, but now that I realize you run several. You can take this question and run with it where you would like to. But what is your value proposition to your audience?
Ooh, that's a great question. Like, should be all right. So I will repeat what I said at the beginning of this show, right? And I carefully use words. Words are my weapons. Words are my interventions, right? I have to treat them very carefully. I started the show, and it might have been subtle. You might have even just glossed over it. This is a podcast that saves physical therapists from missing out on amazing insight, remarkable ideas, and motivational stories in the world of physical therapy. That's what the value that I bring to you. So we can unpack those lines right there, right? So I said this is a podcast, and if you know what a podcast is, you know it's free, right? There's an exchange, not of money, but of time for information, right? And time is a commodity. It's probably the most important commodity you should pay attention to in terms of private practice, or this as students, right? Like, your time is valuable. If you mess around during the day and you don't do your work, then you're scrunched for time later. So you can't get it back. So when I say a podcast that saves physical therapists from missing out, you know what a podcast is? I save you from missing out. So I actually use a psychological principle called loss aversion. And you should look that up. Donald Miller has a great book called Marketing Made Simple, or Building the Story Brand. I use Donald Miller's Building the Story Brand to craft that one sentence exactly how it is. Okay, so it's a podcast that saves physical therapists from missing out. That's that loss aversion. There is something that you could have, these stories, ideas, and insight, but if you don't listen, you won't have them. I mean, you see this in marketing and communications all the time, right? If you've ever responded to a J. Crew ad, you're like, 50% off, runs out tomorrow. Like, you have 50% off, but not unless you act. And then really the value proposition is amazing insight, remarkable ideas, and motivational stories. Because I think that when you get a bunch of student physical therapists or physical therapist assistants or plumbers, firefighters, anybody together with their peers, they talk about the things that they're passionate about. So I want this show to be as if you were having a beer with Daniel Chalette, who's the physical therapist for the PGA Tour. And I hope that I ask good enough questions, or I get out of the way of Daniel from giving you those amazing insights, remarkable ideas, and motivational stories. So I think the thing that I thought wasn't valuable, this weird history of interviewing people, this comfortableness of interviewing people, I didn't think it was valuable in PT until I saw it, until I literally saw two dots that shouldn't have a straight line between them. Like, radio and PT doesn't make any sense until it does. So I think the value proposition is I get to leverage what I was good at and this little random skill that I have in this world, and you win. The whole time, the audience wins. It costs zero to do, except for time. But I want you to say, I listened to Jimmy's show for 15 minutes and I got so much more. I gave this, but I got this, right? That's the idea of an exchange of abundance. Have you ever heard that term before, Amber?
Yes.
Right. There's three types of, for the audience, there's three types of exchanges. You can have an exchange where I gave you $10, but I felt like I got $1 worth of value. So I feel shorted. So I just feel gross. I got taken. I just don't feel good. Right. We've had those experiences before in a restaurant. Man, this was $50 and this was crap. I can't believe I did that. Right. The second is if you're a baseball fan, tie goes to the runner. Right. I went to a restaurant. It cost $50. Like, what was it worth? $50, right? Tie goes to the runner is what happens in baseball when the ball and the batter get to first base at the same time. Except you're playing defense. So tie goes to the runner is a loss for you. It doesn't matter. It ain't a tie. That's a loss. And that third is the exchange of abundance. Somebody gave me 30 minutes of their valuable time. And I mean that when I say it. I respect people's time. And they felt like they got this. They gave me this, right? Time is valuable, but they got this. I always want that to be the value proposition. Man, you guys are coming out with like good, like hardcore, like entrepreneur questions. I like that. Did I answer that right? Is that what you were expecting? Or is that because I'm trying to read in your face, your body language, and I'm like, yeah.
I'm taking notes.
Oh, I'm not even looking at the camera anymore because there's a little insight into like interviewing, right? But it also translates to patient care. Is I am constantly assessing how I'm delivering information. I'm also reading my audience. My audience right now is Amber. I'm conscious of everybody listening either live on Facebook or Twitter or listening in the podcast later. But I'm watching Amber's face, and for the audience who's just listening pod, she was looking down. I didn't realize she was taking notes, which makes me feel good, right? It makes me feel like, oh, this will be valuable. But I was like reading her face. I'm like, she looks upset at this answer. But it was just you had your writing face on. Yeah.
So do you just tweak that value system to accommodate whatever podcast you're developing then?
Yeah, I always go into it knowing that, like, look, I get paid from Fox Rehab to host their podcasts, right? But the ultimate person that is more important than even my boss, even if he's listening, needs to be the audience. Because without the audience, it's Jimmy just talking in his room to no one, right? So the boss realizes that. So as much as the boss wants to be the most, and he doesn't, he understands. But like you might think the boss is ultimately in charge or the host. It's not. It's the other way around. You flip the dynamic. Your patients or your potential patients, those are the people you need to be designing your systems for. Like yesterday, we had an episode with a guy who's an organizational psychologist and web designer. He designs websites, and you don't design them for the company that paid you to do it. They paid you to do it to design a website for the person who will use the website, right? So if they paid you to do something, make sure you're doing it for the right audience. So one of my first questions in a communications evaluation is always, what's your goal, right? What's success look like to you? And also, who's this valuable for, right? For a patient in front of you, if you're a physical therapist, it's usually, hey, it's me. I'm the audience. In a communications evaluation, it shouldn't be the people that you're interacting with, the company that you're working for, or the podcast that you're helping. It's what is the audience value? What can I bring to them? Put out there in the world this great content. Audience will find you. Same thing for a PT practice. Put a turnkey operation for me to achieve my goals. They will find you.
Do you think you have any competition in this niche?
No. Now it sounds like I was just cocky, right? I'm not. No. And here's why. Podcasting specifically is like swimming. Are there any swimmers in the audience, right? Even if we've all seen the Olympics, right? And this is why, there you go. This is why I like it. You're not swimming against the guy in lane 4. You're swimming against the clock, and you're swimming against you. You're swimming against how much training you did over the last month or 6 months. You're swimming against what you ate for lunch that day if it's still sitting like a rock in your stomach. So I look at it as, in swimming, it would actually be a good idea for me to jump in the pool and just like dunk the guy in lane 4 if he's faster than me. But I can't do that. That's against the rules of the game. The rules of the game are go fast, hit the wall, come back, repeat. In podcasting, your competition is attention and time with people. So other podcasters, they actually validate what I do. More people who find their way to podcasts or physical therapy podcasts, and specifically, that just validates what we do. And I see it as the more we collaborate. That's why I don't think there's any competition. I think we all are or should be collaborators and not competitors, right? So, does this translate to PT clinics? Because you might say, well, no, I need every patient to walk through that door who finds out about me to be my patient. But what if you're not the perfect physical therapist for that patient? and you can refer that person to one of your competitors or collaborators in your city, in your town, your competition. That person goes over there and has fantastic service. They win. Your collaborator, fellow physical therapist wins, and you just gained thought leadership. You gained cred, right? So the next time that therapist is like, man, Amber referred someone. She could have been like, no, this is me. I found this one. She was thoughtful and sent that person my way because it was the right thing to do. That patient got a good experience. They're going to talk highly of you. Like, you know what? Amber was like that. This isn't the right place for you, but I know that one that is. So you just created some stuff in the world that will come back to you. By the way, Amber, I will keep talking unless you cut me off. All right. I just want to make that abundantly clear. That's just how I roll. But
that's fine.
What did you? I'm curious because that was a good question. What did you think I was going to say?
Well, after I realized that you do more than one podcast, I thought that there might be like a value proposition for each individual podcast. And I really didn't know what you were going to say because, I mean, you're in a tight niche and it's pretty awesome what you do. And you're a brilliant person.
Thank you for saying that. I like the fact that you asked a question that you didn't expect an answer. That means you had curiosity, which are the best questions to ask. I love those kind of questions. Like, I was really curious because you want to know why? Somebody listening to this on the podcast later or watching this live right now was probably thinking the same thing. Or when they heard that question, they were like, ooh, what's he going to say? That just showed that, like, we're giving the audience right now. This is very meta. We're giving the audience right now, while we're talking about value proposition, we're increasing the value proposition. That's pretty cool. So good on you for making my show more valuable, Amber. I'll send you it.
What was your equation on podcasts again? Like podcasts equal time and what else?
Did I say an equation?
Yeah, it wasn't monetary value. It was something else.
So everybody who works with me knows that I will forget what I said 5 minutes ago, and everybody's laughing. I can see them off camera. I don't know. It's time, right? So like a podcast, there are podcast apps growing up or popping up out there that'll charge you, like the Netflix of, right? You got to pay Netflix, and then where podcasting is just, it's time for value. If I spend 10 minutes with Jimmy, what is that exchange? Is it an exchange of abundance? Man, I listened for 10 minutes and I got so much out of that. Oh my gosh, I'm going to come back. That's what I want someone walking away leaving with. I want them to say, wow, I got a lot, because that person's going to tell a friend. That's another thing I ask. Listen, this is free. If you ever find value in what I do, the only thing I ask, tell one friend, tell one colleague, tell one classmate, tell one person, and then tell them why. Not just, hey, this guy's got sound effects and that's kind of funny. Like, that's not why. I mean, they're the icing on the cake. But here's what I got out of it, and that comes to a word which I like to use, which is remarkable. Worthy of making a remark about, right? Seth Godin is a great author. If you're looking to read a book that's really insightful per page, like biggest valuable per page. If someone makes a remark about your product or service, wow, that is valuable. They just said, like Amber just said, yo, this thing, this is worth you spending 10 minutes on. You're going to get an exchange of abundance. Because then your friend who trusts you is going to go listen. And if they go, I wasn't really seeing what you were seeing right there, but okay, thanks. Your social cred just kind of got eroded a little bit. They look at you a little bit different. Like, ooh, that was not a show on Netflix that I would appreciate that Amber just sent me to. That's weird. I don't ever want to see that again. So making remarkable content, that's really the that's the aim. So I would say that it's a time proposition, value for time.
And if I can interject a little bit, I think that
more. I'll keep going.
Well, I just want to say, like, I mean, that question is so strong because we're talking about a positive sum game here. In the 80s, a guy named Bobby Axelrod wrote this book based on game theory by Dr. John Nash. And the whole thing is building a positive sum game. It's creating value and adding value into the world. And like you said, people will find that value if you're creating, again, value. If you're talking about the analogy of the race, it's like racing against the clock versus racing against other people.
Right.
If you're racing against other people, you're going to be pushing to get the best time. But like as soon as you're thinking, I got to beat him, then it becomes a value or a status game. And the status game is a zero sum game because everyone's trying to build the tallest building. I heard an analogy. It's like there's two ways to build the tallest building in the town. Number one is just to build the tallest building, right? And then number two, tear every other building down. The second one's going to be impossible, right?
Right.
So like you add that value, and I kind of want to use that as a transition into sort of how you did that with your podcast from the start, I guess. Like, how did you define that value statement and really see like, okay, I can add value here? And then how'd you get over the hump of this isn't going to work? Like essentially fight clubbing yourself.
Yeah.
Like, how did you get past that?
That's a good question. This podcast was born out of my insecurity for not feeling like I fit in or was smart, my imposter syndrome, right? We're all dealing with it, right? So I'm sitting in class and I was 31 or something and all my classmates were like 24 and I was like, I don't feel like I belong here. Total imposter syndrome. And we default to our baby blanket, right? What we're comfortable to. So I saw this as a way of being able to get something for myself. Believe me, I get a lot out of the show. I get to ask people who I think are super smart questions, and then I get to sit there and just listen to them.
Yeah.
Like, so Becky Bliss, I interviewed Becky Bliss in my third year PT school. I was doing one of my big neuro projects on concussion, and there was this big, huge book that I could read. And I was like, oh, that is, I don't think how dense that book is. And then I started Googling people in and around the book and papers. And I found Becky Bliss and I just emailed her. I was like, hey, can I interview you? Yeah. Well, 40 minutes later, my paper was pretty much written. She said it. And then I said, Becky, another question, right? How do you get better guests or how do you get better information? Becky, like, thank you so much. This is off mic. Becky, what other papers or who should I talk to? And she's like, I have a Google Drive filled with stuff. I'll send it to you. And by the way, here's 3 people you should talk to. And I was like, huh? And I realized books an inanimate object. I like animate objects. I like people, and I get better information. So long answer to a short question. It was on accident because I defaulted to what was comfortable and did that. And along the way, I realized that when I'm getting value, the audience is getting value.
That's amazing.
And I just and then lather, rinse, repeat.
The conversations that you're able to have with people, and I've listened to, goodness gracious, a lot of your podcast. How many episodes have you uploaded?
We stopped counting past like 650, so we're probably 750 or whatever. Yeah,
that is unbelievable in the span of 5 years.
Yeah.
So you're putting out content, and you're being consistent. And granted, you do have that background in radio, right? Which gives you that niche, that skill set that no one else really has in our space. Let's transition that into, say, we all want to start a clinic, right? We're talking about the private practice elective group right now. 7 students that probably want to start a business at some point, whether that be PT or whatever. Like that, that's the interest. How do you spot that in yourself, and how do you integrate that in the community? Because I mean, I'm different than you. I'm not in radio or anything like that. How do you find those skills that are valuable to the world around you?
Okay. So I'm going to become a PT now. You just asked me like a podcast communications question. I'm not going to answer it like a podcast or a communications guy. I'm going to answer it like a physical therapist, because I speak those 2 languages fluently, right?
Amazing. Yeah.
I'm going to say we need to do an evaluation, right? What are you good at? What do you like? What gives you the tingle? I tell you, Kaipo, you're going to do soccer, man. Soccer's big in this area. And you're like, I don't like soccer. But I'm like, no, man. I'm going to jam soccer down your throat. We're going to do soccer. You're going to hate that. And that's going to last for 6 months. It's not going to go anywhere, because when people look in your face, they're not going to see passion. They're also not going to hear Kaipo talking the talk and walking the walk, because he doesn't like soccer. When he goes home, he doesn't soccer. He doesn't play FIFA online. He doesn't do any of it. So I would say evaluation, self-evaluation. What can I bring? And to get right through it, you do not need to be the world's expert at something. Your PT education and your experience and your hustle is enough to help people. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it twice. Your experience and your education as student physical therapists is enough to start. You should never just say, well, I'm done. What I'm saying is, be more confident. I'm also saying this to myself. Like, this is something we have to repeat to ourselves. So now we started with you, right? So now, Kaipo, we got you. You're in your community, and you're like, okay, well, now I've done a self-assessment. I know what I've got. Yeah. Now, my next question: where do you want to go? What's success look like to you? What are your goals? That's a communications question. It's also a question a physical therapist would ask, right?
Oh, definitely. You have to set goals. Otherwise, you're not going to know whether it's been a success or not. Yeah.
Or maybe I'm halfway there. Maybe I'm further from the goal. So now we've got where you are. We've got where you want to be. And now you sit down and you say, I don't know, maybe you take out like a field notebook or something.
Yeah, I gave you that.
You did give me that. Yeah, of course you did. You take out a notebook or a dry erase board or a piece of paper or whatever, or a napkin, and you say, I'm here. I want to get here. Let's think of one or two ways that will get me from A to B, because A and B can move, but there's still a straight line between those 2 points, right? This is also how I dance. But there's always a straight line between those 2 points, right? So we've just got an evaluation, we've set goals, and now we're going to put a plan into action. That could be a communications plan. That could be a plan of care. They're both plans. Yes. So I would say analyze that. Also throw into, so now that's an assessment. I think in that intervention or your goals, you should be looking at your audience, right? I don't know if you want to be doing a soccer type clinic in Antarctica. Maybe they play a lot there, but are the things that I have that are valuable, are they valuable to the people I'm trying to communicate? And if the answer is yes, then you have to just sprinkle on a whole bunch of hustle.
Having that starting point and having that end point, I feel like is such a key that a lot of people miss, right? Like, I mean, our society is built on like, just go to school, get this, figure it out later, figure it out as you go. But, you hear guys like Gary Vee or Naval Ravikant, who I love Naval's podcast, amazing stuff. He talks about his Twitter storms and everything like that. Really, really quality. But he talks about like having a knowledge of yourself and the fact that you can bring luck to you, right? He talked about 4 kinds of luck. It's dumb luck. That's like literally whatever, like it happens. You have hustle luck, or I don't know the specific term, but you make a lot of noise and something happens. Like something will happen because you're just hustling so hard.
Monkey humping football, right? A lot of moving around, not a whole lot happening, right? Yeah,
exactly. And like something could happen. You're more likely to have that luck than dumb luck because you have that movement. Yes. The next thing of luck is when you can find luck. It's like having a map, right? It's like I know where this treasure is. I'm going to go and find that. I think that's
it. Right. I know the beach because that's where pirates used to bury it. Right. So
exactly.
Right.
Yes. And you have the tools and that kind of thing. You're getting there. Right. But the fourth kind of luck is really what Naval talks about as the biggest, most valuable thing you can have. And it's when it happens when you have specific knowledge. And I think PT is specific knowledge. Yeah. And specific knowledge is when you have people coming to you for this luck. So luck literally comes and knocks on your door. It's like if you're the only person that can retrieve a treasure chest on the bottom of the ocean floor and you're the only person in the world, anyone who finds treasure on like anywhere will come to you because you're the only person to do that. Just like how you are probably the only PT that's ever had a background in radio and is now starting a podcast for PT and has been such a huge success and adding so much value to people's lives.
Right.
So I love that.
I had to love it though, because I had to be willing to hustle too, and it had to be part of my goals, or else this is another thing I have to do, and then I wouldn't have passion. So there's a formula there. So I would rewind and write it down because I'm really bad at taking notes. But yeah, you're right. I think that specific knowledge type of luck is definitely needed.
Mm-hmm. And that actually transitions us well to that, right? So thank you, Amber, for asking those questions. We're actually going to bring Jordan in. And he's going to ask the next one because our next little bit is going to be about advice to the new grad, right? In a year, we'll have all the specific knowledge of being a PT. And Jordan has a fantastic question because this is something that like we put in so many hours to become a doctor of physical therapy. The next thing is going to be Jordan's question, which I'll go ahead and let him ask now.
Jordan, welcome.
Hey, thanks so much for having us. I'm so pumped up right now.
All right, good.
So I mean, I think your life story like basically answered this question already because of all the things that I feel like I've learned, but I'll ask it anyways. Do you have any unique tips or tricks for new grads to avoid burnout as they're starting up, whether it be their own clinic or whatever their own path is?
Yeah. I think that's a great question because I was scared of it. I still am. Even in radio, coolest job in the world, right? It was still a job and I would still kind of get burned out. And I will give kudos to all the students watching, listening right now in the room and online because you're doing something that we've all done, go to school, but you're doing it in such a different way. You're having to adapt at such a rate. So kudos to you guys. So the fact that you're already kind of doing it, right? I mean, you must be, because you're still standing. You're still a student. You're avoiding burnout in this thing of a massive DPT program spread across 3 years during a pandemic right now. So that in and of itself deserves, commendation. So good on you guys for doing that. To avoid burnout, wow. I would say pay attention to yourself, right? A lot of times professors or clinicians will say, be careful of the shiny object. You're going to get some job offers that are going to seem real shiny, and be a critical consumer of literature, right? The evidence, and also who is dangling shiny objects. And again, some of the shiny objects are really, really great. So make sure that whatever position that you're actually, going towards will align with what you're good at and where you want to go. Because like your life is your own story. You're the lead character in your own story. I don't know who would play you, but me, it's Jimmy Fallon. Make sure that whatever that thing is, or that job that you take, is at least putting you somewhere in line to get to that goal. And if it's not, that's going to show up as friction, and that friction will cause burnout. Like, I think that's definitely one reason for it. If you want to work every day and you're helping some people, but you don't feel like you're progressing, it's difficult to get out of work on a Monday morning, right? My dad was a New York City firefighter, and he would say it all the time. I got to go to work and do good stuff for people, and they pay me for it, and I get to blow a siren. He's like, this is icing on the cake, right? Well, I got to go to work and play rock music real loud, and local businesses got to benefit, and people got to rock out to Ozzy Osbourne and stuff like that. But it only started becoming burnout when it didn't align with my goals. I didn't get the tingles anymore. And immediately this job that I just had 5 minutes ago suddenly was causing me burnout. And I had to do a self-assessment as of why. And I just said, I just didn't love it anymore. That was your question, right? Sometimes I just start talking and I don't even know where I'm going, but it was like avoiding burnout and, advice. But, it's real hard though, right? Because right now the job market sucks. So you're going to say, oh my God, I'm going to take the first job that comes along. I'm not going to say not to do that. That would be disingenuous of me, but make sure that you're getting enough out of that job, and that you're constantly saying, is this the direction I want to be going in? And then start looking. Best time to look for a new job is when you have a job. Or you could do something completely different outside the clinic. Like, I don't know, start a podcast. But don't start a podcast unless it's what you want to do and it aligns with your goals. I mean, people do, concierge PT, no clinic. They go to people's homes because they're identifying what their audience is and what problem they have. And they go, I can solve that problem. And they beat a path to your door. I feel like the class of 2020, 2021, 2022 that are all sitting in school or just graduated, you're going to see an explosion of creativity, because necessity, mother of invention. There's some things that people have been talking about for years that we're saying that'll never happen, or this isn't possible. Online education and DPT can't be. Oh, we're doing it right now. Oh, we're live. Okay, we're going. Telehealth, as Blake is shouting out there. Yeah, telehealth. Now, that's 10 years away. That won't be great. Oh, yeah? Well, we're doing that a whole lot right now, aren't we? And we're still standing and the world's still spinning for us right now. So, the sexy answer for my tips and tricks, self-assessment. Ask yourself if your goals are aligned with what you're doing. And if they are, it's going to be a real good ride.
And I love how there's no dollar amount attached to that. It's really about knowing yourself and figuring out what you're going to do to fulfill that mission that's already inside of you, whether you're finding it, finding that method in which you operate optimally, or are just absolutely passionate about what you do. And I think that's such a big key.
$100,000 a year. Awesome. If you're miserable,
terrible. No, not worth it.
Buys you a lot of pints of ice cream. That's what I would buy if I were miserable. A bunch of ice cream, a couple of beers, but you know what? Can't drink or eat that away, right? But if you're making 70 grand, I'm just making these numbers up. If you're making 70 grand and you are thrilled to go outside and get in that car and go to your clinic, that 70 grand, whoo, that feels really good. You ride 168 hours a week. Yeah, that's a great question, by the way, Jordan. It's a good question.
Great. And what we'll do is we'll transition now, because you kind of did it a little bit, and you're making the job really easy as an interviewer. I guess it's your years of experience probably. But we're talking about how we need to start within ourselves and figure out where we are and where we want to go, and then figure out where that is, right? Well, we have this this podcast has a great sponsor that helps you do that wherever in the country, right? Isn't that Arias Medical Group?
Oh, well, hey, well done. Yeah, AUREUSmedical.com. But, they are a sponsor of the show, right? So Arias is a company that finds physical therapist jobs, right? Travel jobs or long-term assignments, right? It was so easy for me to have them as a sponsor because I knew I was going to be saying their name a lot, that I literally sat down with them and I did the same thing. What do you do? What are you good at? What are your goals? And it was so aligned with, so it was like my dad, you do good stuff for good people. Like you find them jobs where they want to go because you have that skill and they don't, but they're good therapists and you're a recruiter. I was like, yeah, that's a super easy, sell. So that's the cool part. Like literally they're like, just make sure you say the website, like, and say whatever you honestly believe about us. So I only believe what I hear from their travelers, and they're repeat travelers and they're thrilled and they're, taking pictures, wherever they go, beach, mountains, whatever. So Arias finds finds therapists, jobs, PTs, PTAs, and the website, AUREUSmedical.com. Killer radio segue, Kaipo there. That was awesome.
I listen to you a lot, so I've heard you make that transition from every which way.
Yeah.
And actually, because of Arias, we have 3 questions that they particularly sponsor, right?
All right, Bridget.
I want to flip it on you, though.
Okay,
you're not going to ask us. We're going to ask you.
So we're going to do check this out. We got a cool graphic for 3 questions. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Well, I don't know if that was extra or just amazing.
Exactly. All right, 3 questions brought to you by Arias. What do you got? All right, 3 questions. What you're asking them, right?
Yep. So I don't know the exact wording, but if you could be anywhere in the world doing your job, I guess in America would probably be better. Where would you go?
Yeah, Arias positions all over the U.S. If I could go anywhere in the U.S., and the cool part with Arias is it's like a short-term assignment or a long-term assignment, so like permanently or just for like 3 months, because that's how long some short-term assignments are. Man, I've never been to Hawaii. Ooh. And I've only heard good things, and I got to try that at least once. And the other thing is when people talk about that in front of like people at Arias, they're like, no, there are positions there often, because people just assume it's so dope. Like it's Hawaii, that everything's there. I don't know how to break into that market. It's not true. You can do it. So, and you can do it with Arias. You can do it with Arias.
Oh, and it's PT. Like people forget that the people in the islands. I'm from Guam, so like the islands sometimes get left out, and I'm gonna like shout it out back to there. Like we need PT just as much as anyone else in the world. So the islands go
Guam. I'm in.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be great. I mean, I've got some connects. We'll talk. All right. So second question: what are you reading, or what are you listening to that you want to share?
Yeah, I just got this one. I got a stack of books, and I'll post like a bunch of them. But this is like the new one that I just got. Tripped across it. It is called Tribe of Mentors. It's from Timothy Ferriss.
Tim Ferriss, yes.
He wrote a book called 4 Hour Work Week, and then everything exploded. Like, so the cool thing is this is what I'm reading and what I'm listening to, because how smart is Tim Ferriss? He wrote a book with a bunch of insight from a bunch of people he respected, right? And then he created a separate podcast where he interviews people that he values their insight, and they give insight. So the book promotes the podcast promotes the book. All the tingles on that one. So I would say Tribe of Mentors is a good one. And he also had a follow-up called Tools of Titans, which I have not started reading yet, but that looks great.
When is the PT Pintcast book going to come out? It's
ironic that you say that. I'm dead serious. We have not talked about this publicly, and maybe you should say your BHAG, right? Your big, very audacious goal out loud. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to do it with Tim Ferriss, and I'm going to find all the people in and around physical therapy that I think have valuable information, and I'm going to make the book, and I'm going to interview all of them.
Yes, that's amazing.
Today is June 24th, 2020, and I just said it.
You said it. You said it out loud, and now it has to happen.
That's out of the bag.
You're not a liar.
Now I have to do it fast before someone steals it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. No. You've got your space.
Right.
And then obviously the last one, and this kind of could be answered by the previous, but I'll still ask it anyways. Who in the realm of, I guess, your sphere, who should people know about that are listening to this podcast?
Oh, she loves to remain in the shadows, but now she is on the biggest stage in our profession, and that is someone who helps with the show is Dr. Sky Donovan, who is my school advisor at Marymount University. That person I referenced earlier when I said, "Hey, I have an idea for a podcast," and she was like, "Yeah," her eyes got real big. Yeah, you should do that, and she pushed me. She allowed me. She gave me permission to do it. And she just got elected to the American Physical Therapy Association Board of Directors.
Ooh.
Top 15 people who help guide our professional organization. She's constantly lifting other people up, constantly, and finding the good, and she champions other people. And I'm glad that she's finally being given some extra credit, and some recognition and another opportunity. Like literally, she gets recognition. Hey, you won this election. You're on the APTA board of directors. But what it did was it leveraged her ability to leverage other people, and we're going to benefit as a profession. So she's my sleeper as APTA board of director member who is going to do amazing things. You watch. She just got elected like a month ago. She's on there for 2 years. It's going to blow up.
We were super blessed because we had longtime VP.
Lisa Sladden.
Lisa Sladden. Yeah, she's fantastic. She's our provost.
I'm going to chase her down. She's going to be in the book.
Oh, she would love that. She is so cool. She's
super smart.
Yeah. So that really does it for our class, and we so appreciate you. I mean, you doing this. I mean, this is something that is obviously atypical, but what is typical in the last 3 months? We're making things happen.
I got a shot. You want to do it?
Yeah.
Bridget, let's do the parting shot. Let's do this thing. It's gonna happen. I can't. Armpit tired. Hold on. What happened? It's not happening. All right, hang on. We back up. This is live radio. Here we go. Parting shot.
This is the parting shot.
All right, parting shot is brought to you by our friends from the Academy of Orthopedic Physical Therapy. If you want to be a leader in orthopedic physical therapy, why not go to the Academy of Orthopedic Physical Therapy? Courses to expand your knowledge. If you want to try the OCS exam, they've got current concepts of orthopedic physical therapy. That was the leading course to do that. All right, parting shot. That's when I usually let the guests, their mic drop moment, right? The last thing I want to leave with the audience. And I appreciate, Holly, thank you so much for bringing me these students, asking me killer questions and letting us do this as part of your class. My parting shot is be the boat. Now, in between my radio career and me going to PT school, little known fact, I was a City of North Myrtle Beach lifeguard. I was a beach lifeguard. That's why I've got the beach theme here. I got the crabs in the shirt. In lifeguard training, we did a thing called a horizon swim, right? So we were training all week, being beach. We were practicing running in slow motion. It was awesome. They teach you how to use the whistle. And we did we met on the beach at 7 a.m. The sun's just coming up, and there's this instructor's great Southern accent, right? North Myrtle Beach. And we had just been training on boats the day before and jet skis, which are awesome. And there was a buoy 1,000 yards out. And he's like, we're gonna go to the buoy today. And one of the other recruits goes, "Where's the boat?" And he leans in, he goes, "You're the boat. Start swimming." So sometimes in life, whatever you're aiming at is really, really far away, and you're going to look for the Uber or the boat, or you're going to look for the hack or the trick. And a lot of times, you're the boat. Start swimming. Now, along the way, someone might help you out, or you might find some fins or something like that, or a jet ski might cruise by you can hang on to. But when in doubt, you're the boat.
I love it.
All right.
Yeah, definitely.
Appreciate it. MUSC, always good. Please invite me down ever. Love Charleston. Would love to do anything you guys want. And thank you. You guys asked some really great questions, Holly and the rest of the staff down there. Appreciate you. So thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for having me. All right, Bridget, let's do this thing. This thing is done.